Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to a journey that will pull you into the murky depths of Cold War intrigue, where the battle for global supremacy wasn't fought only with guns and spies, but with the untapped power of the human mind. Picture the United States in the early 1970s, a nation gripped by the tension of a silent war with the Soviet Union, where every technological leap, every intelligence breakthrough, could tip the balance of power. In this high-stakes chess game, the CIA embarked on a mission so audacious, so bizarre, that it sounds like the stuff of science fiction. This was Project Stargate, a clandestine program to harness the mysterious art of remote viewing, the ability to see far-off places and events using nothing but the mind's eye. These weren't your typical operatives, they were psychic spies, men and women trained to peer across continents, infiltrate enemy strongholds, and uncover CIA secrets without ever leaving their chairs. For over 2 decades, government experiments pushed the boundaries of science, belief, and possibility, blending parapsychology with espionage in a quest to outwit a formidable enemy. Tonight, we'll unravel the enigma of Project Stargate, diving into its origins, its secret missions, the lives it changed, and the questions it left unanswered. So settle in, dim the lights, and let's step into one of the most captivating American mysteries of the 20th century. A story where the line between reality and the impossible blurs. Let's begin in 1972, at the Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, California, a hub of scientific innovation nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley. The Cold War was at its zenith, a time when the US and Soviet Union were locked in a relentless struggle for dominance. Intelligence reports had begun to filter through the CIA, whispers of Soviet experiments in psychotronics, the use of psychic phenomena for military advantage. The idea was outlandish yet terrifying. What if the Soviets could use the mind to spy on American bases, predict troop movements, or even manipulate events from afar? Determined not to be outdone, the CIA launched government experiments to explore whether psychic abilities could be weaponized. The spark came from a man named Ingo Swann, an artist with a wild mane of hair and a reputation for psychic feats. In a sterile lab under the watchful eye of physicist Harold Puthoff, Swann did something extraordinary. He altered the magnetic field inside a shielded vacuum container simply by focusing his mind. "I saw the field shift," Puthoff later recounted, his voice tinged with awe. "It was as if the laws of physics bent for a moment." That moment was the genesis of Project Stargate, a program that would grow from a small experiment into a multi-million-dollar operation, shrouded in CIA secrets and driven by the hope that remote viewing could change the course of history. The concept of remote viewing wasn't entirely new. It had roots in ancient mysticism, from shamans who claimed to see distant lands in trances to seers who advised kings. In the 20th century, parapsychology had taken these ideas into the lab, with pioneers like J.B. Rhine at Duke University testing telepathy and clairvoyance using Zener card simple symbols like circles and stars. But Project Stargate was different. It wasn't about guessing cards. It was about turning the mind into a tool for espionage. The process was both simple and surreal. A psychic spy would sit in a quiet room, often blindfolded or in a dimly lit space, given only a set of coordinates or a sealed envelope with the target's description. Without any physical clues, they would attempt to see the target, perhaps a Soviet missile silo, a hostage's hiding place, or a secret lab halfway across the world. They would describe their visions in halting words, sketch shapes and structures, sometimes mold clay models to capture fleeting images. The results were often dreamlike, fragmented, like trying to piece together a puzzle from a fog. But when they were right, the results were astonishing, offering glimpses into places no spy could reach. "It was like tuning into a radio signal from another dimension," said Joseph McMoneagle, known as Remote Viewer Number 1, whose visions would become legendary in Project Stargate lore. The early days of these government experiments were a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The CIA recruited a colorful cast of characters to test the limits of remote viewing. One of the first was Uri Geller, An ex-Israeli paratrooper turned global celebrity for bending spoons with his mind. In 1973, Geller spent 8 days at the Stanford Research Institute, locked in a shielded room while researchers tested his ability to see hidden drawings and locate buried objects. In one experiment, a picture was drawn and placed in a sealed envelope. Geller, without seeing it, sketched a square with diagonals, matching the original result that left the CIA intrigued but divided. Skeptics like psychologist Ray Hyman, who reviewed the tests, called Geller a fraud, pointing to flaws in the experimental design, like potential sensory leakage. Geller was a showman, Hyman later wrote, not a psychic. But the CIA saw potential, and Geller's involvement brought attention to remote viewing, convincing the Department of Defense to fund the program. By 1975, the CIA handed Project Stargate to the Defense Intelligence Agency (DIA), moving it to Fort Meade, Maryland, a fortress of military secrets. Under Major General Albert Stubblebine, a man fascinated by the paranormal, the program grew, assembling a team of psychic spies to tackle missions that conventional espionage couldn't touch. One of the earliest operational successes came in 1974, when psychic spy Pat Price was tasked with describing a Soviet nuclear testing site codenamed Nuts. Given only geographic coordinates, Price sat in a quiet room, closed his eyes, and let his mind wander. He described a multi-story crane, cylindrical structures resembling oil derricks, and a cluster of buildings in a remote desert. When his sketches were compared to satellite photos, the CIA was stunned. Price had described the site with uncanny accuracy, down to the layout of the facility. "It was like he walked through the place," said Russell Targ, a physicist who worked on Project Stargate. Price's success became a cornerstone of the program, proof that remote viewing could yield results no spy satellite could match. But the technique was far from perfect. For every success, there were dozens of failure sessions where viewers saw nothing but static or described targets that didn't exist. To refine the process, researchers developed protocols like the rank order method, where viewers answered a detailed questionnaire about a target's features, comparing their impressions to those of an agent at the site. These government experiments aimed to make remote viewing a science, but the results were maddeningly inconsistent, a puzzle that both thrilled and frustrated the CIA. By the late 1970s, Project Stargate had become a fully operational program, with a small but dedicated team of psychic spies. Joseph McMoneagle, a Vietnam veteran with a weathered face and a quiet intensity, became one of its stars. After a near-death experience in 1970, McMoneagle claimed his senses were heightened, allowing him to tap into visions others couldn't. Between 1978 and 1984, he participated in over 450 missions, from locating American hostages in Iran to identifying a KGB agent's hidden radio in South Africa. In one remarkable session, McMoneagle was given coordinates and described a massive Soviet submarine under construction in a secret shipyard. His sketches showed a double-hulled vessel with missile tubes, details later confirmed by U.S. intelligence. "I didn't know what I was seeing," he later told the Washington Post. "I just drew what came to me." McMoneagle's work earned him a Legion of Merit, a rare honor for a psychic spy, and cemented Project Stargate's reputation within the DIA. But not all missions were so grounded. In 1984, McMoneagle was handed a sealed envelope labeled, "The Planet Mars, 1 million years BC. Without knowing the target, he described tall, thin beings in strange clothes, obelisks, and pyramid-like structures, a vision that left him shaken. "I thought I was losing my mind," he said. The Mars session, while dismissed by skeptics, showed the program's willingness to explore the impossible, pushing remote viewing into realms science could barely grasp. The CIA secrets surrounding Project Stargate were guarded with obsessive care. At Fort Meade, security personnel briefed the team every 2 weeks, reminding them that leaks could compromise national security. "We were professional paranoids," said Dean Radin, a scientist who worked on related experiments. The DA had 3 goals: Use remote viewing to gather intelligence, assess whether adversaries like the Soviets were doing the same, and improve the technique through rigorous testing. One experiment in the 1980s involved 40 subjects tasked with recognizing features of randomly composed faces, a method seen as promising for locating missing persons or identifying criminals. Another tested psychokinesis, the ability to move objects with the mind, though results were inconclusive. But the program's secrecy was its Achilles heel. Experiments were rarely replicated independently, and the lead investigator, Edwin May, often judged the outcomes, raising concerns about bias. The lack of outside scrutiny was a fatal flaw, wrote psychologist David Marks in The Psychology of the Psychic. Despite these issues, Project Stargate pressed on, driven by a belief that the mind could unlock secrets no technology could. The 1980s saw Project Stargate at its peak, with psychic spies tackling high-stakes missions. In 1979, during the Iran hostage crisis, viewers were tasked with locating Americans held in Tehran. One viewer, Mel Riley, described a building with a courtyard and armed guards, details that matched a known embassy compound. In 1981, psychic spies helped track a Soviet Tu-22 bomber that crashed in Africa, a feat confirmed by former President Jimmy Carter, who later said, they found it with remote viewing. During the Gulf War, viewers pinpointed Scud missile locations in Iraq, and in the 1990s, they identified plutonium stockpiles in North Korea. These successes, while rare, kept the program alive, even as skeptics grew louder. The DA also explored wilder ideas, like using remote viewing to search for the Ark of the Covenant or to predict future events. While no evidence supports these claims, they reflect the program's audacity, its willingness to chase the impossible in the name of national security. But not every mission was a triumph. Remote viewing was plagued by inconsistency, with viewers often producing vague or incorrect descriptions. It's like trying to see through fog, said Ingo Swann, who developed the program's early protocols. The DIA tried to address this with training, teaching viewers to clear their minds and focus on sensory impressions. Yet, even the best, like McMonigal, admitted to decline effects accuracy dropped as mental fatigue set in. Critics pointed to methodological flaws, like the risk of front-loading, where viewers were given hints about the target, skewing their visions. In one session, a viewer described a futuristic city that turned out to be a misinterpretation of a factory. These failures fueled skepticism, with CIA officers like John Alexander arguing that remote viewing was too unreliable for operational use. It's intriguing, but it's not intelligence, Alexander told Time magazine. Still, the DIA persisted, driven by the fear that the Soviets were ahead in the psychic arms race. The human stories behind Project Stargate are as gripping as the experiments themselves. David Morehouse, a decorated Army officer, joined after a near-death experience left him with vivid premonitions. Recruited as a psychic spy, he described remote viewing as a spiritual roller coaster that revealed the mind's potential, but also brought personal chaos. Morehouse faced harassment, phone taps, and a court-martial after trying to expose the program's darker ambitions, like using psychic abilities to manipulate or harm targets. I wanted it to be a force for good, he wrote in Psychic Warrior. His story highlights the toll government experiments took on those involved, blurring the line between duty and obsession. Ingo Swann, the program's pioneer, was a complex figurine artist who believed remote viewing was a universal human ability, suppressed by skepticism. He spent years refining protocols, only to leave in frustration when funding dwindled. Joseph McMonigal, the program's star, embraced his role, claiming his vision saved lives, but even he struggled with the isolation of secrecy. You couldn't tell anyone what you did, he said. It was a lonely life. The CIA's secrets of Project Stargate were part of a broader Cold War landscape, where unconventional methods were explored with desperation. The CIA's MKUltra program tested mind control with drugs and hypnosis, while the Acoustic Kitty project implanted microphones in cats to eavesdrop on Soviet embassies. Project Stargate fit this pattern, driven by fear that the Soviets were mastering psychotronic warfare. Intelligence reports claim the USSR spent 60 million rubles annually on psychic research, with units like Troop 10003 training soldiers to influence minds. If the Russians have it, we need it, Congressman Charlie Rose told the House Select Committee on Intelligence in 1979. This paranoia fueled government experiments, even when results were shaky. The DA's focus on penetration using remote viewing to access underground bunkers or secret labs was particularly appealing, as it offered a passive tool that was nearly impossible to counter. But the lack of hard evidence kept the program on the fringes, a secret even within the intelligence community. By the early 1990s, Project Stargate was under scrutiny. The end of the Cold War reduced the urgency for unconventional methods, and budget cuts loomed. In 1995, the CIA commissioned the American Institutes for Research, AIR, to evaluate the program. The 183-page report, led by Ray Hyman and Jessica Utz, was a turning point. Utz found a statistically significant effect, with some viewers scoring 5 to 15% above chance, but Hyman argued the results were too inconsistent for practical use. There's no evidence it was ever useful, Hyman wrote, citing flaws like subjective judging and lack of replication. The report highlighted successes like locating a downed Soviet aircraft, but concluded that remote viewing produced vague and ambiguous data. Based on these findings, the CIA shut down Project Stargate in 1995, ending a $20 million experiment that had spanned 23 years. Time magazine reported that 3 psychic spies were still working at Fort Meade on a $500,000 budget, but the program was quietly dismantled. The legacy of Project Stargate is a tangle of fact and myth. Declassified in 1995 with 12 million pages released in 2017, the program's files offer a glimpse into a world where science met the supernatural. Supporters point to successes like Ingo Swann's 1973 description of Jupiter's rings, confirmed by NASA's Pioneer 10 in 1979, or McMonigle's sketches of a Soviet submarine. Critics, however, argue these were anomalies, with most sessions yielding unusable data. The program's cultural impact is vast, inspiring books like The Men Who Stare at Goats, which became a George Clooney film, and TV shows like Stranger Things and The X-Files. On X, users debate its reality, with some claiming it was a CIA ruse to mislead the KGB, while others believe it went black ops after 1995. Former psychic spies like McMonigle and Swan have taught remote viewing workshops, claiming it can predict stock markets or find lost objects. It's a skill anyone can learn, McMonigle told Forbes in 2019, though skeptics remain unconvinced. The American mysteries of Project Stargate extend beyond its results to the questions it raises about the mind. Scientists like Dean Radin argue that psychic phenomena are real, supported by experiments showing statistical anomalies. Others, like Richard Wiseman, dismiss remote viewing as pseudoscience, citing the placebo effect and confirmation bias. The 1995 AIR report reflects this divide, with Utz advocating for further study and Hyman calling for its end. The program's secrecy didn't help conduct it behind closed doors. It lacked the transparency needed for scientific credibility. Yet, its allure persists, fueled by stories of psychic spies who saw the impossible. Documentaries like Third Eye Spies and podcasts like Mysterious Universe keep the story alive, exploring its blend of espionage and the paranormal. It's the ultimate what if, said host Ben Grundy. What if the mind can do more than we think? The broader context of Project Stargate reveals a Cold War willing to embrace the bizarre. Programs like MKUltra and the Pentagon's UFO investigations show a government desperate for any edge, no matter how strange. The Soviet threat loomed large, with reports of psychotronic labs and telepathic soldiers pushing the U.S. to act. Project Stargate was a gamble, a leap into the unknown driven by fear and ambition. Its CIA secrets were not just about espionage but about exploring human potential, asking whether the mind could transcend physical limits. The psychic spies were pioneers in this uncharted territory, their visions a mix of triumph and frustration. Whether they saw the future or merely imagined it, their work challenges us to rethink what's possible. As we delve deeper, let's consider the personal toll of Project Stargate. David Morehouse's life unraveled after leaving the program, haunted by visions he couldn't explain. Ingo Swann, once a believer, grew disillusioned, feeling the DA exploited his work. Joseph McMonigle, despite his successes, faced skepticism from peers, his achievements buried in classified files. The secrecy took a psychological toll, with psychic spies unable to share their work with families or friends. "You lived a double life," said Mel Riley, another viewer. "The program's end left many adrift, their skills obsolete in a post-Cold War world. Yet, their stories endure, a testament to the human drive to explore the unknown, even at great cost." The government experiments of Project Stargate also raise ethical questions. Was it right to use taxpayer money on unproven science? Did the CIA exploit vulnerable individuals like those with near-death experiences for their abilities? The program's darker ambitions, like Morehouse's claims of psychic manipulation, hint at a willingness to cross ethical lines. The DA's secrecy, while necessary for security, fueled distrust, with critics accusing the program of fabricating results to justify its budget. On X, users speculate about hidden agendas, with some suggesting Project Stargate was a cover for other operations. These CIA secrets remain unresolved, a puzzle that invites endless debate. The cultural footprint of Project Stargate is vast, from Hollywood to online forums. The Men Who Stare at Goats captured its absurdity, while Stranger Things drew on its mystique, blending fact and fiction. Podcasts like The Black Vault dissect its files, with host John Greenewald uncovering documents that hint at continued research post-1995. Reddit threads on r/conspiracy buzz with theories from time travel to alien connections. The program's influence extends to New Age movements, with remote viewing courses offered by former spies. Its blend of science and mystery makes it a perfect fit for the American mysteries genre, appealing to those who love the unexplained. As we near the end of this journey, let's reflect on what Project Stargate teaches us. It's a story of ambition and doubt, of a government willing to bet on the impossible. The psychic spies were not just operatives but explorers, testing the limits of the mind in a world defined by fear. Whether remote viewing was real or a delusion, it challenges us to question our assumptions about reality. The CIA's secrets may never be fully revealed, but they remind us that history is full of hidden chapters, waiting to be uncovered. Project Stargate is a testament to the human spirit, its drive to push beyond the known, even when the path is uncertain. If this tale of Project Stargate has stirred your curiosity, don't let it end here. Share it with a friend, explore the declassified files at the National Archives, or watch Third Eye Spies for a deeper dive into the psychic spies. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you believe remote viewing unlocked the mind's secrets, or was it a Cold War fantasy? Subscribe for more stories of CIA secrets, government experiments, and American mysteries, where we peel back the layers of history to reveal the unknown. The Project Stargate saga may be over, but its questions linger, a haunting reminder that the mind's potential is as vast as the stars. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and may your nights be filled with wonder. Good night, and sleep well.